The hike had started out like any other. My friends and I, a group of adventurous souls seeking a break from the monotony of city life, had chosen a remote trail in the mountains for our weekend escape. Little did we know that our adventure would turn into a nightmare beyond our wildest imaginations. The trail was rugged but beautiful, winding its way through dense forests and along rocky cliffs. We were in high spirits, laughing and joking as we navigated the challenging terrain. But as the sun began to set, casting long shadows over the landscape, a sense of unease settled over us. It started with small things, rustling in the undergrowth, shadows darting at the edge of our vision. We brushed it off as our imaginations running wild, but as darkness fell, the sounds grew louder, more persistent. That night, as we sat around the campfire, the atmosphere was tense. The crackling of the flames was drowned out by the eerie silence of the forest. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched, that something was out there in the darkness, just beyond the reach of our campfire's glow. And then, out of nowhere, the silence was shattered by a blood-curdling scream. We jumped to our feet, hearts pounding, searching the darkness for the source of the sound. But there was nothing, just the endless expanse of trees and shadows. Terrified, we huddled together, trying to rationalize what we had heard. Maybe it was an animal, or another hiker in trouble. But deep down, we knew it was something else, something unnatural. As the night wore on, the forest seemed to come alive with malevolent energy. Shadows danced and flickered, taking on sinister shapes. The air was thick with the stench of decay, and a cold wind whispered through the trees, carrying with it the faint sound of laughter. Unable to sleep, we kept watch, our senses heightened to the slightest sound or movement. And then, just before dawn, it happened. I saw it first, a figure tall and gaunt, emerging from the darkness. Its skin was ashen, its eyes sunken and devoid of life. It moved with an unnatural grace, gliding through the trees towards us. I tried to wake my friends, to warn them of the approaching danger, but they were frozen in terror. The figure drew closer, its presence filling me with a bone-deep dread. And then, with a sudden burst of movement, it was upon us. It reached out with bony hands, its touch like ice against my skin. I screamed, a primal sound of fear and desperation, as it dragged me into the darkness. I fought with all my strength, but it was no use. The figure was too strong, its grip unyielding. As it dragged me deeper into the forest, I caught a glimpse of my friends, their faces twisted in horror and disbelief. I tried to call out to them, to tell them to run, but the words died in my throat. All around me, the forest seemed to come alive, the trees twisting and contorting in a grotesque mockery of nature. And then, just when I thought all hope was lost, I saw a glimmer of light ahead. With a surge of adrenaline, I broke free from the figure's grasp and ran towards it, my heart pounding in my chest. As I burst into the clearing, I realized with horror that I was not alone. The clearing was filled with figures, all of them ashen and lifeless, their eyes staring blankly ahead. I knew then that I had stumbled upon something ancient and evil, something that had lurked in the depths of the forest for eons, preying on unsuspecting travelers like myself. With a final burst of strength, I turned and ran, the sounds of pursuit echoing in my ears. I ran until my legs gave out beneath me, until I could run no more. And now, as I sit here, in the safety of my home, I can't shake the feeling that the darkness is still out there, waiting, watching, biding its time until it can claim me once more. Days passed, and I tried to convince myself that it was all just a nightmare, a figment of my imagination brought on by exhaustion and fear. But the memory of those empty, lifeless eyes haunted me, and I knew that what I had experienced was all too real. I couldn't bring myself to tell anyone about what had happened, afraid that they would think I was crazy. So, I buried the memories deep within me, trying to move on with my life. But the forest had other plans. One night, as I lay in bed, I heard it, the faint sound of whispering, like voices carried on the wind. I tried to ignore it, to tell myself it was just the rustling of the trees outside my window. But then I heard my name, whispered with a chilling clarity that sent shivers down my spine. I sat up, heart pounding, and listened as the voices grew louder, more insistent. I knew then that the darkness had found me, that it was calling me back to the forest, back to the place where it had nearly claimed my soul. I tried to resist, to tell myself that I was stronger than whatever evil lurked in the woods. But the pull was too strong, the voices too persuasive. And so, against my better judgment, I found myself back on the trail, following the same path that had led me to my nightmare. The forest was silent now, the whispers gone, replaced by an oppressive stillness that seemed to suffocate me. I pressed on, driven by a mixture of fear and curiosity. The trail seemed different now, the trees more menacing, the shadows more alive. As I walked, I felt a presence behind me, a sense of being watched. I turned, but there was nothing there, just the empty forest stretching out before me. And then, just as before, the darkness descended. The air grew thick and heavy, and I felt a cold hand on my shoulder, its touch like ice against my skin. I turned, expecting to see the figure from my nightmare, but instead, I saw something far worse. A creature, neither human nor animal, with eyes that burned with a malevolent fire. I tried to run, but it was no use. The creature was upon me, its claws digging into my flesh, its hot breath on my neck. And then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, it was gone, leaving me alone in the darkness, bleeding and broken. I stumbled back to civilization, shaken and scarred by my ordeal. I tried to tell myself that it was all just a hallucination, a trick of the mind brought on by fear and exhaustion. But deep down, I knew the truth. The darkness was real, and it was out there, waiting, watching, biding its time, until it could claim me once more.